You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I am your host, Steph, and today I'm going to be talking about the 49ers offense and how they preview against the Rams defense. I almost forgot my ring light today. Can't be looking all dark. All right, here we go. Now we got the light going. We're looking great over here. We're going to talk about the 49ers offense. But before we do that, we got some news a little bit ago that the 49ers are receiving some calls on running back Jeff Wilson Jr. And the 49ers are apparently they're willing to listen to these offers. That is reported by Jeremy Fowler from ESPN. And so, of course, with the addition of Christian McCaffrey and this team already pretty deep with running backs, Elijah Mitchell is going to be, he's expected to return after the bye week. This makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, Jeff Wilson Jr., he's been a great player, when he's been here. He's, still pretty young. He's on the final year of his contract, which makes him the perfect candidate for, a trade in, especially after how much the 49ers gave up for McCaffrey. It makes sense that they would want to get a little bit something back. And so trading Jeff Wilson would potentially be an answer to that. However, the one concern that I've seen fans mention so far is the fact that the 49ers running backs tend to get hurt a lot, right? And Jeff Wilson Jr., out of all of the running backs that the 49ers have, he's probably the one that has gotten hurt the least. I know there was that 1 year where he was out for, most of the year, like the whole year almost. But for the most part, he's been able to stay healthy. I mean, Elijah Mitchell has been on and off. And the other guys are pretty young, right? Like Ty Davis Price, he's still young. He's still learning the ropes a little bit. If you watch some of the tape, he still makes some mistakes. I don't know if you can trust him with a large role should someone get hurt. And Christian McCaffrey, at least in his time with the Panthers, has dealt with injuries on and off since I believe like 2021 or something like that. So, yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr., well, something to keep an eye on. Potentially, someone who gets traded before the deadline. But I feel like this is a long shot. Maybe the 49ers just wanting to put the message out there, see what offers they can get for him. But ultimately, I don't think it ends up happening. I'd be pretty surprised. I don't think the 49ers do it for anything less than a 6th round pick. And, for Jeff Wilson Jr., that's asking for quite a lot, right? But to make it worth it for the 49ers, they would be taking a bit of a risk, right, by trading him away and, banking that their remaining running backs would be able to stay healthy. That's a risk. So to make it worth it for them, I think they would do it for anything above a 6th. But we'll just have to wait and see. So definitely interesting on the Jeff Wilson Jr. front. If you guys are watching on YouTube, go ahead and vote in the poll. It's in the comments. So I want to know, do you guys think that the 49ers should trade away Jeff Wilson Jr.? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in that poll on the side there to the right. But yeah, while you guys are here, make sure you guys like this video if you guys have not yet. All right, we got a good episode coming your way. But let's talk about some 49ers injuries, right? That's always the big story going into every freaking game with this team, the injuries. All right, so there's a lot of guys who didn't practice throughout this week, and you would guess those guys are out this week. Eric Armstead, no surprise, he's been dealing with his injury for quite a while. You would hope that after the bye week, they can get him going. Because I know earlier in the week, Kyle Shanahan had said that Eric Armstead had a chance to play this week, but after Armstead didn't even practice at all this week, it became a long shot, and now he's out. So hopefully after the bye week gives him enough rest on his foot and ankle that he could return to the lineup. Another player that is out is Kyle Juszczyk, Dre Greenlaw on the linebacker side, and Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel, that's the big one right there that the team will be missing. And then as far as questionable players go, Juwan Jennings and Jason Ferret. Both Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel are dealing with the same injury. They're both have a hamstring injury, though we do not know the extent of each of those injuries. The fact that Juwan Jennings is questionable while Deebo is out might suggest that Juwan Jennings may not be dealing with something quite as severe or quite as severe as Deebo. So you also want to be safe with Deebo. You don't want to, risk, furthering or worsening his injury by playing him in this game. And so the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan did say it's not a precautionary designation for Deebo. So he's out because he's really out. He's really hurt. So hopefully him resting this week and the bye week after that, he'll be available the following week after that. Emiliano says here, well, if that's the case, and if Jeff doesn't get touches this game, then that's probably a sign that he's about to get traded during bye week. If TDP suddenly gets touches, then it's bye-bye, Jeff. Well, yes and no. I mean, TDP was getting some carries even last week as well. But I'm with you, Emiliano. I mean, Christian McCaffrey he didn't know all of the plays quite yet. And so I would expect that CMC gets a bunch of additional carries this week. And that kind of makes Jeff Wilson Jr. Potentially expendable in this game. I'm sure he'll still be involved, but that's a good point that you make that, if Wilson doesn't get a lot of touches, then maybe it's a sign that he will get traded. But on the other hand, the 49ers might want to get him touches to kind of showcase him and, run up that trade value, so could go either way, really. But let's talk about Deebo Samuel really quickly because I think that's huge for this game. Deebo Samuel has done a lot of damage when he's played, the Rams. In the last 4 games that he's played against the Rams, he has gotten 488 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns. And that's going back to last season, of course, last 4 games against the Rams. I call him the Rams killer because every time that the 49ers play the Rams, he has a big game. And he's the heartbeat of the team when the 49ers play the Rams. For the most part, he's put together some really great performances against them. And so him not being out there, I think, is a huge blow to the offense, especially because this is in the midst of us, having a lot to say about the offense and them underperforming and not quite being able to do enough to, win them a game. And so Deebo Samuel not being out there, I think definitely makes a huge difference. I'm sure the Rams are relieved that he's not going to be available. But this tweet here from Nick Wagner that I have up here, and for the audio listeners, I'll read it off. It says, in ESPN Analytics, new receiver tracking metric. 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey leads running backs in yards after catch score this season with 82. He leads it by 11 points over the next closest running back. Rams have allowed the most yak per reception, 9.7, to running backs this season. He adds a possible way to compensate for Deebo's absence. So what do you guys think about this? Christian McCaffrey, he's been with the team a little over a week now. Kyle Shanahan did say that he would have the entire playbook available to him this week, McCaffrey, that is. And given this, and given the fact that even last week we saw him running quite a few routes out there last week against the Chiefs, I would imagine that we see that again this week. And because McCaffrey does a lot of the same things that Deebo does well in terms of yak, in terms of making guys miss, playing that wide back role, right? Uh, I feel like Christian McCaffrey could be that guy who can fill in very nicely for what Deebo Samuel brings to this offense, and they're going to need it going into this week, right? And another thing I wanted to add here, Christian McCaffrey looked pretty good last week against the Chiefs. I know the game wasn't the outcome we wanted, but I think we can all agree coming out of that we liked what we saw from Christian McCaffrey, right? He had 8 carries for 38 yards, and he had 2 catches for 24 yards. 2 weeks ago against the Rams, you recall, as a member of the Panthers, he played the Rams 2 weeks ago. And so he had 13 carries for 69 yards rushing, 7 catches for 89 yards receiving. That is what you call a dual threat. And that's pretty similar, not similar, but again, it just goes back to that wide back role. He could do a lot of different things. He handled the 13 carries and 7 catches, but he was effective in both sides of the rushing and receiving aspects for the Panthers offense a couple weeks ago, and Rams had some trouble defending that. And so I would expect that the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, he's going to try to get Christian McCaffrey involved. And not even just that, I think one thing that we have to consider here, the fact that the Rams wanted Christian McCaffrey too. Do you feel like Kyle Shanahan, maybe, just maybe, is going to want to rub it in that, hey, McVay, I have CMC, not you. He's going to want to rub it in and, even get McCaffrey even more involved in some crazy plays that, makes the Rams hate their lives, kind of like Deebo did, in some of those past games. That's just some thought crossed my mind that maybe Kyle Shanahan will want to rub it in to the Rams and Sean McVay. So I would expect a very healthy amount of Christian McCaffrey come Sunday. And I think, he's the strongest candidate for being able to fill the Deebo role in this offense. And yeah, I think he's up for the task. I think, it's going to be a challenge for the Rams once again, especially after, seeing that the Rams have allowed the most yak per reception to running backs this season. So the 49ers definitely going to want to take advantage. But the 49ers have other playmakers as well, right? They have Brandon Ayuk, who is on the cusp of something special. These last few weeks that he's played, you could just feel it. Last week against the Chiefs, 10 targets, 7 catches, 82 yards. 2 weeks ago against Atlanta, 11 targets, 8 catches, 83 yards. He also had 2 touchdowns against Atlanta. So you kind of feel like he's on the verge of being wide receiver 1 on this team, right? And these are the types of performances that he can put together. And, maybe the chemistry between him and Jimmy Garoppolo is still, growing. And so these last 2 weeks that he's gotten, just over 80 yards, I'm going to give a bold, not so bold prediction that Brandon Ayuk goes over 100 yards this weekend against the Rams. And they're going to need that, right? Jimmy Garoppolo is going to need to get Brandon Ayuk involved. With Deebo Samuel not in the picture, Ayuk is a playmaker in his own right. He's good with yards after the catch as well. The one caveat to all this is that there's a good chance that he's going to be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey this week. And Jalen Ramsey, good corner, really good corner, still considered one of the better corners in the league. He could be had at some moments, sometimes. And if anyone could, make Jalen Ramsey look silly it could be Brandon Ayuk. So there's a possibility that we see, Ayuk put a move on Jalen Ramsey, make him look silly, put him into a blender. That's what I'm hoping, at least, because that's what this offense needs. With Deebo Samuel out, we need Brandon Ayuk to step up. We need Christian McCaffrey to step up, and the guy I'm going to mention in a little bit, George Kittle, as well. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk, I think he has another strong performance. And again, he's hovering that 10, 11 target these last couple weeks, 7, 8 catches these last couple of weeks, and a little over 80 yards. But I think he's going to have over 100 yards on Sunday, and I think he'll have 1 touchdown as well. That is my prediction. Pretty bold prediction, because again, if Jalen Ramsey is going to be on him, it's going to be, pretty tough. But I think Brandon Ayuk can do it, and he's going to need to do it this week. He's going to need to be one of those guys that steps up in this game. Now, George Kittle is another guy who, the first couple weeks of the season, we were kind of wondering, where the hell is he? What happened to the receiving threat we used to see on this offense, George Kittle, who needs the entire defense on his back to get tackled? What happened to him? Where is he? Look at what I'm sharing right now on the screen is his stats. This is from PFF, but these are his stats from ever since week 3, because he missed the first 2 weeks of the season. For the audio listeners, I'll just give you the highlights here. So in week 3, he had 4 targets. Week 4 against the Rams, he had 4 targets, 2 receptions, 24 yards. That's terrible. Like, that's pretty abysmal. Just not a lot of involvement the first few weeks of the season. Then against Carolina, he had 5 targets, so the target count increased by 1, but hey, we'll take it. 5 catches, 47 yards. So slowly but surely, we're seeing a little bit more involvement. And then week 6 against Atlanta, he had 9 targets, 8 catches for 83 yards. Last week against the Chiefs, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 98 yards, and he finally got his first touchdown of the season. So my point here being, George Kittle, it seems like they're making an effort to, get him the ball throughout these last few weeks, given that the first 2 weeks were, not the first 2 weeks, but the first 2 weeks that he was active, week 3 and 4, he wasn't as involved. And so I think, again, with Deebo Samuel out, there's going to be a game where George Kittle needs to get more involved. He needs to be more effective. And so, kind of like Brandon Ayuk, could we see a breakout? Could we see a breakout coming? It was pretty close last week against the Chiefs, 98 yards and a touchdown. Like, that's pretty good. But I know the 49ers, and we are also hoping that George Kittle, along with Brandon Ayuk, can put together 100+ yard performance on Sunday, because that's what I think the 49ers need in order to win this game against the Rams. They need to be able to put up points, and they're feeling that sense of urgency. They're feeling the heat now, and they need to get things together. They need to be on their A game. They need to lock in. So Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle all need to be heavily involved this week, and they all need to put together great performances against the Rams, because let's face it, this is a must-win game for the 49ers at this point. There's just a lot riding on this game. I don't know. Let me see if I can find it, but Akash earlier tweeted out that, the chances that the 49ers make the playoffs if they lose this game drop significantly. And that's scary because, there's a lot of weeks still left in the season, but the 49ers so far, they haven't looked like a playoff team. The defense has shown flashes in the early going of the season, but since then, these last couple weeks, they have not looked like a contending defense, right? So This is what Akash said. So 49ers playoff chances, and this is from Football Outsiders. If they win on Sunday, their playoff chances are 66%. However, if they lose, it drops to 33%. So again, this is as close to a must-win game as it gets. And it would be really tough sledding for the 49ers if they don't win this game on Sunday. And I mean, equally for the Rams, they are also needing to figure stuff out, and they are also, you know, fighting for a playoff spot because to this point they have looked kind of shaky as well on both sides of the ball. And so this is a very interesting game, and it seems like we always play these games against the Rams where it's like a must-win game, uh, and sometimes it's a must-win for both sides, and whoever comes out on top, probably ends up making the playoffs later in the season. So this game has huge implications for the NFC West and for playoff hopes. So it's equally important for both teams to, get something going in this one. But let's see. As far as Kyle Juszczyk goes, because let's not forget, he's also going to be out. Backup tight ends can probably fill in a bit for his role, right? We'll see more of Charlie Warner, and we'll see more of Ross Dwelly as well. Those two aren't as good as blocking as Kyle Juszczyk, so that's the one thing that kind of concerns me. But at least in the passing game, they can run some of the same routes that Juszczyk gets now and again. And I think even Christian McCaffrey could probably run some of those routes too. And I know we already mentioned McCaffrey as someone who can fill the role of Deebo in this game, but I also think, to an extent, he can also fill Kyle Juszczyk's role, at least from the receiving standpoint, not the blocking so much, but definitely as a receiver, he can run some of those routes too. So I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be a very busy man come Sunday. And based on what we saw last week against the Chiefs and the week prior against the Rams, when he was a Panther, I feel pretty confident that he's going to look good on Sunday. But the question is that going to be enough for a 49ers win? Is that going to be enough for the 49ers offense put points on the board? That might be a whole nother question, but I just know that other guys need to be involved because I have a feeling the Rams are going to want to key in on Christian McCaffrey. Easier said than done, but something that the 49ers need to expect. You need to get other guys involved. Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, that's where they come in. And let's talk about some other matchups in this game. I'm going to share my screen once again. We're going to look at, sorry for the audio listeners, but I'll try to describe what we're looking at as much as possible here. Let's look at the trenches, okay? We have the 49ers offensive line, and I know Trent Williams, uncharacteristic, shaky game for him last week, but I think that's a one-off. I think that's just Trent, shaking the rust off a little bit. He missed a few weeks with his injury, and so now last week against the Chiefs, it was a little rough for him, but I think he'll look much better this week, and especially because the guy that he'll most be lining up against, Justin Hollins, doesn't pose as big of a threat, on that side for him. And on the other end, Mike McGlinchey, who, he had a pretty bad game last week, and so he's going to have to put together another game. Well, what's Mike McGlinchey's excuse? He was dealing with, was it a calf injury or something like that the week prior or something like that? But he did, I think, practice throughout the week before the Chiefs game. And so maybe he wasn't at 100%, but he was pretty close to it. So I don't really know what that was for McGlinchey. Maybe that wasn't one-off too. Every once in a while he has those bad games. Last week on Twitter, I compared him to Jimmy Garoppolo because very similar, like he'll have, a couple of really good games, and no one notices those, by the way. No one says, oh, McGlinchey had a good game. Like, most of you don't notice. But at the same time, like, he'll put together those good games, and then he'll have one really bad game, and that one sticks in everyone's minds because, you know, he gives up sacks, he gives up a lot of pressures. It's hard not to notice, when he has those bad games. But he does have to have a better game this week against the Rams. He's going to be going up against Leonard Floyd. And Leonard Floyd, let's see. You guys can't see this. It's on another tab, but I can't see it either. Okay. Yeah, Leonard Floyd, I think it should be a little bit easier than, Chris Jones from McGlinchey, but I mean, he's also going to see a little bit of Aaron Donald. But who will also get the brunt of Aaron Donald is probably Daniel Brunskill. And you're probably wondering, well, why would it be Daniel Brunskill? Spencer Burford is the right guard, right? 49ers, since Daniel Brunskill came back from his injury, have been rotating Spencer Burford and Daniel Brunskill for whatever reason. I don't know if they're just ramping Brunskill back up and they plan to have Brunskill eventually start at right guard. If that is the case, this would be the game to do it because we all know how dominant Daniel Brunskill is against Aaron Donald, right? Daniel Brunskill is Aaron Donald killer. Like nothing gets by him for whatever reason. He just turns it up against him. And so I think there's a good chance that we see a lot of Daniel Brunskill at right guard on Sunday. And because he matches up so well against Donald, I don't think I'll be mad at it at all. So I think we should feel a little safer if Brunskill is out there on the offensive line this Sunday. But Aaron Banks, I am so happy with Aaron Banks. He's been their most consistent offensive lineman this season. And that's nuts. That's crazy to say, but he has been the most consistent of the group, has yet to give up a sack. And he'll be lining up against Robinson here of the Rams, Ashawn Robinson, who's pretty good, but against, let's see. Let me see if I can show you guys how Aaron Banks did in week 4 really quickly. Hopefully PFF doesn't, take this video down because I'm like sharing this stuff. Hope not. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So Aaron Banks in week, oh my God, another tab. Okay, hold on. Technical difficulties, bear with me. PFF opens like a new tab, like after every click. Okay, here we go. So Aaron Banks in week 4 actually didn't have his best. Well, he gave up 2 pressures and 2 hurries. I don't know why PFF grades him so poorly when like 2 pressures and 2 hurries isn't even that bad. So I don't know what contributed to these grades that they're giving. But in week 4 against the Rams, lining up mostly against Robinson, he gave up 2 pressures. But again, clean sheet on the sacks. He hasn't given up a sack yet this season, as I mentioned. And so the 49ers would hope that is something that continues with Aaron Banks, and I have a good feeling that it will. I feel good, and also I'm also worried about this game. It's a weird feeling. I feel good because it's the Rams, and the Rams have looked pretty bad this season. They're also coming off a bye week, so you don't really know what they've worked on, throughout this week. Not that the bye week is some, magic pill that is gonna make them, suddenly perfect, but I don't know. I feel good in some aspects, and in others I don't feel very great. So let's look at the back end here. So Troy Hill, he's back for the Rams this week, and that's another question, right? We know Ayuk is going to be lining up against Ramsey. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this game. But who's going to fill in for Deebo Samuel. Juwan Jennings, who is questionable for this game, is he going to play additional snaps? I would think yes, but he doesn't play on the outside a lot. Maybe we see Ray McLeod. Maybe we see Danny Gray, although Danny Gray, I don't know. It seems like Kyle Shanahan doesn't really trust him with everything quite yet. And Danny Gray has just one very specific package right now. And so I don't expect Danny Gray to see a whole lot more involvement, but the 49ers can also bring in Malik Turner, and he can get extra reps as well on the outside. And so I think it'll be somewhat of a group effort, right? But they're going to see Troy Hill, in that game on Sunday. So Troy Hill, let's see. I know different tab once again, but he only played in week 1 and week 2, so he didn't even play in week 4 against the Niners. So just something to consider there. And so this will be his first week back. One thing I say about players in their first week back is they don't always look 100%. Like sometimes it's shaky. You're shaking the rust off a little bit. At least for 49ers players, when they come back from injury, that first game back is always like so rusty. Like I don't know what it is, but so I don't know. Maybe Troy Hill will have one of those moments as well on Sunday where he's not, he's still getting back up to game speed and all of that. We can only hope, right? But altogether, look, I feel okay about the matchup. The offense has what the offense needs to do. They can generate drives, they can get drives going, but what they need to do is score points, and that's where they have fallen short too often these past couple weeks. So that to me is the biggest thing that needs to change. Also, turnovers. Turnovers needs to change for this 49ers offense. In particular, Jimmy Garoppolo. He needs to take care of the football. The offensive line gave Jimmy Garoppolo pretty good pocket most of the game against the Chiefs. And you wouldn't think so because, there's a few times where he tried to take off running or like he got sacked and he just held on to the ball too long at times. And that's something that he needs to not do in this game, which historically against the Rams, he's done great at getting the ball out quickly. So I have confidence in the game plan that the 49ers, usually have against the Rams that, it'll be a quick passing attack and it'll be targeting the middle areas of the field for the most part, their bread and butter. And of course, heavy on the run game, which now with Christian McCaffrey, you feel really good about that run game, right? So that should help Jimmy Garoppolo as well in this game, in which he shouldn't have to throw quite as often in those crucial moments, in the red zone. Hopefully he will be passing less in those cases and doesn't throw an interception, throwing to the end zone. Don't want that. So Jimmy Garoppolo has to play a clean game, all right? He has to be smart with the football, and he has to be quick, and so usually he has good games against the Rams, so I would think this is another get-right game potentially for the offense, but again, it all comes down to scoring points. And like I mentioned yesterday, if you guys watched my preview episode for the defense, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and watch that. It's on my channel. The defense also needs to clean some things up, right? And potentially this is a get-right game for them as well, because there's certain aspects of what the Rams have been doing or not doing so well. For example, the Rams run game hasn't been so great. And so that's something that the 49ers defense can take advantage of. And if they can stop the run, everything else kind of falls into place for the defense. And that has been the struggle with Eric Armstead being out, is the fact that they haven't been able to stop the run without Eric Armstead, and everything else has kind of fallen apart. Also, Charvarius Ward, another week removed from his groin injury. You would hope that he puts together a better performance than he did last week against the Chiefs. We were very excited for that revenge game for Charvarius Ward, and we just didn't see it. He didn't look so great. But I think, again, he probably wasn't 100%. He made a push to play in that game against the Chiefs. And, yeah, Jason Verrett, we'll see if he plays. I think Kyle Shanahan today said that they could have him out there for a few snaps. I think he said like 15 to 20 snaps, and they'll see how he responds in those 15 to 20 snaps. I'm cool with that. I don't know if I want him to play the whole game. He hasn't played for a really long time, so you want him to feel out the game and get back to his game speed as well. And of course, SoFi Stadium is a turf stadium, so you don't want to risk any injury to Jason Verrett as well in his first game back, right? So I'm cool with 15 to 20 snaps for him. And I do expect one good point that a lot of people have been making. The 49ers in week 4, the defense played in dime pretty much that entire game. And so I expect that we see that again. And that kind of alleviates the pressure off of, well, doesn't alleviate the pressure, but you guys are worried about Dre Greenlaw being out. Well, if they're in dime the entire game, once again, they'll only need 2 linebackers out there, Fred Warner and Azeez Al-Shaair. So, or is Azeez going to play? I don't know. If not Azeez, Flanagan fouls. So they should be okay, on Sunday on defense. It should be a better performance from the defense. I'm really hoping it needs to be. They need to turn things around right now. And if they do that, it will also help out the offense. Okay. So what's going on, Mariah? Thank you so much for joining. Hey, those of you guys watching, I don't know why, for some reason, Friday nights, like it's lit in here. Like you guys come and watch these lives. And so do me a favor and, hit the like, hit the subscribe, if you guys are not yet. Appreciate all the love. Come on, let's go. All right, but to finish my thoughts, on this game, I think there's a possibility they can win. It really can go either way because I don't know which 49ers team is going to show up on Sunday. And that's been my issue these last couple weeks is like it's been the bad 49ers team that has shown up. Penalties have been an issue. Turnovers has been an issue. Not being able to get off the field on third downs for the defense has been an issue. Not being able to, score, especially in the second half for this offense has been an issue. Those are things that I hope we start to see a change in as early as this week because they need it. And the 49ers would love to be, 4-4 going into the bye week. That would be ideal for them. And if they aren't, like I said, it's a 33% chance that they make the playoffs if they lose on Sunday. So pretty important game for them. Sean Sullivan here says, no picks from Jimmy helps offense and defense. Absolutely. Jimmy Garoppolo needs to take care of the football, not make any dumb mistakes. And he needs to get rid of the ball quickly. I think when he holds on to the football, he tends to, make those mistakes sometimes. And so when his first read is there, things are usually pretty good. But if it's not, anything can happen and nothing good. So, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo needs to have a better game, but I think he will. I think he'll bounce back. And it also comes down to these receivers. Stop with the drops. There's been a lot of drops for this team. I shared earlier in the week a drop rate. 49ers are, I think they're like 4th or 5th worst in drop rate this season. And so these pass catchers have to clean up their act. Like they got to help Jimmy out too. And Jimmy has thrown some fine balls here and there, and they've just been dropped. And so those are things that you can't have happen. You can't have continue if you want this offense to get going and if you want to be able to sustain drives. But yeah, that's what the 49ers need to do. And I think Christian McCaffrey being in the red zone, he wasn't in the red zone that much when the 49ers played against the Chiefs. I think he had a few snaps here and there in the red zone. But I think we see a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey, especially in the red zone on Sunday. And I think and I hope that should help, some of their performance there. But we'll just have to wait and see. Dawson says, need Stafford to keep throwing those interceptions. Yes, absolutely. I think the 49ers have one interception in them this week. I think they can get it done, and that'll definitely help. The thing with Stafford is you got to force him into those mistakes, and getting pressure on him is a big part of that. And I think this defense is going to be able to get more pressure on Matthew Stafford than they did last week against Mahomes. So I think we see a better performance from the defense. Here's my score prediction for the game. I say, one second. I'm thinking. My brain's working, or not working. 23-21. I say the Niners win. Kind of low scoring. All around the NFL, their scoring, I think, has been down, right? So, and I think this is going to be a close game because it's a high-stakes game for both teams. But ultimately, I think the 49ers will win the battle of the trenches, and I think that will lead them to a win in this one. But hopefully, that's a performance that we see. All right, guys. I'm out of here for the night. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy the game. Hopefully it's a better game than the last few games that we've seen. And I hope that the 49ers come out on top. And 49ers media, you're late. Sorry, about to take off. And Paul here says 17-19, flip a coin on who gets the win. Wow. Okay. I like that though. I was kind of I was on the fence of having the score be below 20. That's a good prediction right there. 17-19 and flip a coin. Yeah, it could go either way in this one, truly. But of course, I'm biased. I want the Niners to win, so I predict that they'll win. But that's a good one. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your night. Make sure you guys tune in to my instant reaction episode immediately following the game, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video if you have not yet. Appreciate you guys. Have a good rest of your night. Have a good weekend. Peace.